If you have an iPhone and you have not updated it in the last few months, someone may already be able to get inside it without your face, without your fingerprint, and without triggering a single security alert. This is not a hypothetical. This is not a theoretical vulnerability that researchers found in a lab and decided to write a paper about. This is a real, documented, confirmed security flaw that was sitting inside iOS for months before Apple patched it, and the AI-assisted attack methods that exploit this kind of weakness are evolving faster than most people realize. Right now in 2026, the threat landscape around iPhone security has shifted in a way that every single person carrying one of these devices needs to understand. There are specific settings on your phone right now that are either protecting you completely or leaving you completely exposed. And most people have never once checked them. Here's what happened. Apple released iOS 26.1 in November 2025, fixing approximately 50 vulnerabilities across a wide range of system components. 50 vulnerabilities in a single update. That number alone should get your attention. But buried inside that list was a critical flaw that security researchers flagged as particularly alarming. CVE Update 2025-43422 is the official designation. What it allowed was this. An attacker with physical access to your device could disable stolen device protection entirely. Not work around it, not partially compromise it. Disable it completely. Stolen device protection is the feature Apple built specifically to make your iPhone useless to a thief, even if that thief somehow knows your passcode. It is the last line of defense between a stolen phone and a stranger gaining full access to your Apple account, your saved passwords, your payment information, your banking apps, everything. And a vulnerability sitting in iOS before the 26.1 update allowed someone who got their hands on your unlocked device to switch that protection off. Apple fixed it in 26.1, but that fix only helps you if you updated, and millions of people have not. That is the first thing you need to do right now before anything else. Open your Settings app, tap General, tap Software Update. If you're not running iOS 26.1 or later, every piece of information in this video applies directly to you and your phone is vulnerable today. Update immediately. Do not put it off. Do not wait until tonight. The attack methods being used against iOS vulnerabilities in 2026 are moving faster than they ever have before, and the reason for that acceleration is artificial intelligence. The security community has been watching this shift happen in real time, and the implications are serious. The common assumption among iPhone security experts for years was that finding and exploiting iOS vulnerabilities was genuinely difficult work. It required large teams of skilled researchers, significant financial resources, months of painstaking analysis, and a level of technical sophistication that kept these attacks in the hands of nation-state actors and well-funded criminal organizations. Ordinary thieves could not build iOS exploits. That assumption is breaking down. AI-powered security research tools are dramatically lowering the barrier to finding and exploiting vulnerabilities. What used to take a team of 6 researchers, 6 months, can now take a smaller team as a fraction of that time, using AI-assisted code analysis, automated fuzzing, and machine learning systems trained on patterns from previous vulnerabilities. The result is that the window between when a vulnerability exists in iOS and when someone with bad intentions discovers and weaponizes it is shrinking fast. This is precisely why the Face ID bypass situation that developed across multiple iOS 26 versions is so concerning when you look at it fully. In iOS 26.4, researchers discovered a vulnerability tracked as CVE 2026-28895 that allowed someone with physical access to an iPhone to bypass biometrically protected apps using only the passcode, even with stolen device protection enabled. Think about what that means in practical terms. Ought you have set up specific apps on your phone to require your face to open them? Your banking app, your password manager, your healthcare records app, apps containing the most sensitive information in your life. You long pressed the app icon and turned on the Require Face ID option specifically because you wanted an extra layer of security beyond just unlocking the phone. And this vulnerability meant that anyone who knew your passcode or who grabbed your phone while you were using it and saw your passcode over your shoulder could open every single one of those apps without ever needing your face. The biometric lock was bypassed completely by falling back to the passcode. Apple fixed this in 26.4, but it existed. And in the time it existed, AI-assisted tools were actively scanning for exactly this class of vulnerability. Here is what you need to understand about how AI has changed the attack landscape for iPhones specifically. Traditional iPhone theft and account compromise relied on a fairly predictable playbook. A thief would watch you enter your passcode in a public place, then steal your phone, then use that passcode to get into your device and change your Apple account password before you could react. Apple built stolen device protection to close that exact attack path. But AI-powered attacks are operating on a completely different level. Social engineering attacks, where someone manipulates you into revealing information or taking an action that compromises your security, have been supercharged by AI voice cloning and AI-generated phishing communications. The fake Apple support call that used to sound obviously scripted and suspicious now sound exactly like a real person, uses your actual name, references real details about your account, and creates a convincing emergency scenario designed to get you to hand over credentials or disable security features yourself. AI generates these attacks at scale, personalizes them individually, and deploys them against millions of targets simultaneously. The keychain vulnerability disclosed in iOS 26.4, tracked as CVE 2026-28864, is another example of why these combined threats matter so much. Your iPhone's keychain is where every saved password, every encryption key, every authentication token on your device is stored. A flaw in that system where a local attacker could gain access to keychain items due to insufficient access becomes a catastrophic security event. Apple patched this, but the pattern of these vulnerabilities appearing in successive iOS versions tells you something important. The attack surface of modern smartphones is large, AI is making it easier to find weak points in that surface, and the pace of exploitation is accelerating. So what do you actually need to do right now to protect yourself? The first step, as already covered, is making sure you're running the latest iOS version. As of today, iOS 26.5 is the current release, and it patches vulnerabilities that existed in every prior version of iOS 26. Go update now if you have not already. The second step is checking your stolen device protection settings. Open Settings, then tap your name at the top to access your Apple account settings, then go to Face ID and passcode, scroll down and find Stolen Device Protection, and make sure it is switched on. As of iOS 26.4, Apple now enables this feature by default on new installations. But if you have been running iOS for a while and never turned this on manually, it may still be off on your device. This feature is the single most important security setting on your iPhone. When it is active and your phone is away from a location it recognizes as familiar, every sensitive action requires biometric verification through Face ID. There is no passcode fallback. A thief who has your passcode cannot view your saved passwords, cannot access your payment information, and cannot change your Apple account credentials without your face. Turn this on right now. The third thing to check is which of your apps have Face ID enabled at the app level. On a current iPhone running iOS 26, you can long press any app icon and look for the Require Face ID option. Your banking apps should have this enabled. Your password manager, should have this enabled. Any app containing financial, medical, or personal identity information should have this enabled. This adds a second biometric gate beyond just unlocking the phone. Even if someone gets past your lock screen, they cannot open those specific apps without your face. Given the vulnerability history of iOS 26 versions, it is worth auditing this list carefully and making sure your most sensitive apps are protected at the app level as well as the device level. The fourth setting that most people have never checked is in Settings under Privacy and Security. Scroll down to find the section for sensitive permissions and review which apps have access to your location, your contacts, your camera, and your microphone. AI-powered malicious apps have become significantly better at hiding their data collection behavior inside seemingly legitimate app functionality. An app that SKs for microphone access to provide a voice feature may be collecting audio data in ways you did not consent to. An app that asks for contact access to help you find friends may be harvesting your entire contact list for marketing or worse. Review these permissions now and revoke any that do not have a clear and obvious legitimate purpose. The fifth and most underappreciated protection against AI-assisted attacks on your iPhone is two-factor authentication hardening. Most people have two-factor authentication enabled on their Apple account and consider that sufficient. It is not sufficient if your second factor is SMS text messages. AI-powered SIM swapping attacks, where a criminal convinces your phone carrier to transfer your number to a SIM card they control, give them the ability to receive every text message sent to your number, including your two-factor authentication codes. If your Apple account two-factor authentication is delivering codes via SMS, you are vulnerable to this attack. Go into your Apple account settings and switch your trusted phone. Number verification to use an authenticator app instead of SMS where possible. For your most critical accounts, banking, email, Apple account, use a hardware security key or an authenticator app that generates codes locally on your device without any network transmission that can be intercepted. The sixth thing worth understanding is that Apple Intelligence, the AI system integrated into iOS 26, has its own permission settings that are worth reviewing carefully. AI features that analyze your messages, your photos, and your documents to provide suggestions and summaries require access to a significant amount of personal data. That data processing happens primarily on device, which is genuinely more private than cloud processing. But the integration of AI into the operating system also creates new attack surfaces. Vulnerabilities in AI processing components can potentially expose information that those components have been given access to. Reviewing which AI features you have enabled and restricting access to Apple Intelligence for apps and content categories where you have heightened privacy concerns is a reasonable step given the current vulnerability environment. The broader picture here is one that every iPhone user needs to sit with, honestly. Apple builds the most secure consumer smartphone operating system in the world. That is not marketing. It is a well-documented technical reality backed by years of independent security research. But even the most secure system in the world is a moving target in an environment where AI is continuously accelerating the discovery and exploitation of vulnerabilities. The 50 vulnerabilities patched in iOS 26.1 alone represent 50 ways that someone could potentially compromise your device, your data, or your security if you had not updated. The Face ID bypass that existed in iOS 26.4 was real, was confirmed, and was being actively analyzed by security researchers at precisely the same time that AI tools were making that kind of analysis faster and cheaper than ever before. Staying updated is not optional. Reviewing your security settings is not optional. Understanding that the threat has evolved and that AI has changed both sides of the security equation, the attackers and the defenders, is essential if you want your phone to actually protect you rather than just appear to. Update your iOS right now. Turn on stolen device protection right now. Enable Face ID at the app level for your most sensitive applications right now. Review your permissions right now. These are not complex steps. They take 10 minutes, and the difference between a phone that is properly secured and a phone that is running on default settings from 2 years ago in the current threat environment is the difference between real protection and a false sense of security that AI-powered attackers are specifically trained to exploit.